Hi, and welcome to the OT is In, the podcast where we merge the worlds of education and occupational therapy to empower families like yours. I'm Sarah Collins, your host, an occupational therapist and a homeschooling parent. I've experienced occupational therapy by supporting families for over 15 years, but also through seeking out support of my own children. So I'm right here in the trenches with you. Though there is not one way to educate your child, there is a lot to consider when individualizing an education. And the goal of this podcast is to explain some of the why behind what an occupational therapist is thinking so you can apply it to your own family. Especially with my three favorite topics: executive functioning, handwriting, and sensory processing. Each episode will be packed with practical tips, expert interviews, and real-life stories aimed at helping you to create a supportive learning environment for your child. So, grab your headphones and get ready to dive in of the collision of education and occupational therapy. I'm Sarah Collins from Homeschool OT, and I'm thrilled to have you with me on this journey of discovery. Hey, welcome to another episode of The OT is In. I'm your host, Sarah Collins, and today we have a moving story that blends the worlds of occupational therapy and homeschooling. We're joined by Lindsey Larson, an inspiring OT professional and homeschooling mom who's navigated a remarkable journey from working in different OT settings to specializing in pediatric care following her daughter's severe stroke. Lindsey opens up about her unexpected shift into pediatrics, her deep dive into homeschooling, her children, and the creation of her impactful children's book, Meeting Exceptional Friends. During our conversation, Lindsey discusses her mission to educate both children and their caregivers about disabilities through engaging storytelling. She also shares her exciting role as the incoming director of Disability Book Week, an initiative aimed at promoting disability-inclusive literature. So whether you're a parent, an educator, a librarian, or someone passionate about neurodiversity, this episode promises to offer valuable insights and resources that you won't want to miss. So tune in to hear Lindsey's heartfelt story and learn about her advocacy for inclusive education and compassionate understanding. Thanks for being here. Hey, homeschool parents, I am so excited that you are here for the OT is In podcast. We just celebrated our 6-month anniversary, and hearing how this podcast has impacted your homeschool is such an honor. I want to be sure, though, that you know all the ways that I can support you through Homeschool OT. So we offer 3 fantastic services. First is community. This OT is In membership where you get weekly group coaching, a library full of helpful resources, access to a community of like-minded parents, a monthly book club, and a private question and answer session every 90 days. Another option is a private consultation. So this is personalized to dive into the nitty-gritty of your homeschool so that you can create customized strategies that fit your child's specific needs, with the goal that your homeschool is used to help your child to be successful in what they specifically need and want to do during the day now and in the future. And the third option are the classes. These are topic-based focus groups on critical areas like handwriting, sensory needs, and executive functioning. And all of this provides in-depth guidance on the why. So with Homeschool OT, the goal is that you understand, yes, that why and how to support your child. You don't just get advice. You get actionable solutions from me, a licensed OT, and a fellow homeschool mom. So visit homeschoolot.com to learn more. And thank you again for being here. Hey, and welcome back to the OT is In. My name is Sarah Collins, and today I am here with another OT homeschool mom mixture, Lindsey Larson. So Lindsey, can you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about your journey to where you started and how you ended up doing what you do now?
Sure. Yeah. I had been practicing as an OT. I worked in inpatient rehab, outpatient rehab. I did some work in hands and also skilled nursing. And it was funny because as I went through my journey and I kept trying new things, and that's why I wanted to be an OT anyway, because I wanted to keep trying new things, working with different
Yes.
people. The opportunities are endless. And I had this phrase that I would say that you're going to chuckle at now, but I would just say anything but peds. That's why I'd say I'll work in anything but peds scared me to death. And so lo and behold, I gave birth to my child, and shortly after birth, she had a massive stroke, and it affected her left temporal parietal and part of her occipital lobe. So it was a massive stroke. And
Yeah.
from that day forward, I knew our life was going to be different. With that severe of brain damage, we knew we're going to be looking for different types of, be it delays. She does have epilepsy and things like that. We knew that there was going to be things we were going to have to change about our lives and everything. And I look back at that now and find it interesting, because that is when I switched and my life became Peds. and
Yes.
and it's funny because in the homeschool world, you hear, at least I do, people will say things like, oh, I don't know how you homeschool. I could never homeschool, or I would never be able to do that. And I think they mean it as like a compliment.
Right.
But every time they say that, I think of me when I was younger, and I
And you were
said,
like, never, not a
never, I'm
chance.
not doing peds. I'll make a splint I can do that, but don't give, I'm not going into peds. And peds is my whole life now.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I just think that relates so much to the homeschool world, with a lot of people that maybe have a child with neurodivergence or a disability, and they're thinking about homeschooling and they're not sure. They because maybe it wasn't on their radar. That was
Mm-hmm.
how it happened for me. And it was my daughter. We did try preschool with a very wonderful private preschool. When we lived down in Georgia, we still are military. We move a lot. And they let me come in and be in the classroom and try all my
Beautiful.
OT stuff. And
Yeah.
they were so wonderful and accommodating. And we would take chunks of our time and go try things at the preschool and leave and come and go. And we did all of that. And after 3 years of really me trying to use my OT brain and figure out what is the best for my child, what we settled on was the best was her homeschooling.
Her
and
being with you. Yeah.
and it and that is how it started. And then when we had my second daughter, she just rolled right in to homeschooling with us. And she has homeschooled us up until fourth grade. And we just moved to Illinois, and she decided my 10-year-old is trying fifth grade at the public school here. So we just keep shifting and changing,
Yeah.
and as we grow and see what is working for us at the current moment.
Absolutely. I talk a lot, like there's not one right way to educate your child, right? It's the way that is working for your family and the way that you feel comfortable, and often the way that you're stretched. That's what you're saying here, is that it is definitely not what was in your plans, but you were stretched to this and made that happen. Wow. Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. Now, you also have gone a little bit farther, you've combined some OT, some homeschooling, and you have created a book. Tell me more about that.
Okay. I did. One thing, being out in the world, in the community with my daughter with disabilities, she has intellectual disability, she has global developmental delay, she has epilepsy, hydrocephalus, the list goes on and on, sensory processing
Mhm.
disorder, and she does have an autism diagnosis now. And so we go out into the world and we're often noticed, and
Mhm.
that's okay. But what I was noticing happening over and over, even when we lived different places, was there was a lot of hesitation, not by children, but by
By their parents.
caregivers that were with the children. And the children would be walking over to us or starting to ask a question. And a lot of times I was getting a parent that was pulling their child away or stopping them from asking a question. And again, I know this kind of goes back to, I remember some situations when I was a child, and I feel like we never really learned how to handle some of those
Mhm.
situations. And that is where I decided I needed to come up with a way to not only just talk to kiddos, because I thought maybe I can go into the school setting and have these conversations about disabilities with young kids. But I was like, I think I really need to get to the parents and the caregivers. I need to help them know that it's okay to talk about disabilities and teach your children about some of the neurodiversity and teach them about disabilities and the world that they will encounter.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's when I settled on a children's book, hoping that parents and caregivers will sit down with their kiddos and read the book. And the book is really designed as an educational tool. It's called Meeting Exceptional Friends, and it's based at a playground, and it's a variety of kids that, if you were to just take kind of snapshots throughout the playground, and they're all children, some of them is some one child might have a disability and they're talking to another child with a disability, and you might not
Mm-hmm.
even know in all the situations. But the phrase that's repeated over and over is, that's a great question, because this book is targeted for younger children, and we teach children that it's okay to ask questions about everything else. And I think it's important that we support them in their asking questions about disabilities, because when we turn them away and pull them away, when we tell them, don't ask that, I feel like that gives that child, it gives them a reason to avoid. And it gives them
Yeah,
almost
and
maybe a sense of
fear.
fear. Yeah.
Hmm.
Of what did I do wrong? And we don't want them to say, I should not engage with that person. In fact, all of us parents are saying, please
Yeah.
come, let's talk. So I saw a joke that I was like the parent chasing other parents down. I think your child just had a question. I'm so happy to answer their question. They probably left like such a strange interaction.
I would have talked to your kid, but you're scary.
So I really wanted this message to get out into the world. And so the book is really, if you're sitting down with your kiddo, they can open up that book. They can ask all these
Right.
questions about these individuals in the book. And my hope is, and if you go out into the world, not that they necessarily need to go up and ask every person about every device that they use or anything, but by then they'll
Or
understand
be
that there are
invasive,
these.
right?
Yeah, you can simply say, remember that book we read, how we
Hmm.
talked about people have differences, and just have that little conversation right there. If you see someone using a cane, and you can stop and say, hey, remember when we were
Yes.
reading that book about all the children that had differences related to their disabilities or neurodiversity. So yeah,
So
that's what it's about.
I love this so much. And now, several years ago, I read A Place to Belong by Amber Johnston, and she's actually come into the book club for the OT is In podcast here pretty recently. It's been beautiful. But one of the concepts that she talks about is having windows and mirrors. The mirrors where you're seeing pictures, and you're also reading about people that you relate to, that you understand because it's in your same life story, but also reading about windows and being able to see out into other people's lives and in context and how they're living. And so, do you have recommendations? This book sounds like completely where it's window into somebody else's life, and also helps us to know to ask questions and to feel okay, or to ask questions to our parents, right? But not
Sure.
necessarily, hey, let me interrupt your conversation so that I can ask my question.
Right.
Are there other book lists or places where you recommend for people to go to find these types of books?
Yes, absolutely. Right now, for children's books, I have a growing list. I most recently updated it on my website, and it's free to download. It's also on Teachers Pay Teachers, free to download. And you can click on the links and it can send you to where you can find it, or you can just print off the list and keep it. I have 80 children's books that are mostly self-published authors. They're mostly, well, almost all, I think every single one of them on this particular list is either written by an individual with a disability, has a child with a disability or neurodivergence, or works with individuals with disabilities, like speech therapists, occupational therapists. I have a whole bunch of them myself. I'm trying to
Yeah.
get the whole collection, but we keep adding to it. So that's on my website, lindsey-larson.com, which will be linked below. Or like I said, on Teachers Pay Teachers, but you have to have an account for that. But I also am very excited to announce that I am going to be the incoming director of the volunteer organization Disability Book Week. And they have a website as
Cool.
well, and that is listed below, disabilitybookweek.org. But I am just at the very start of this. But the goal is to not, we're of course going to take all these wonderful children's books, and we also want to make sure that we're including books for young adults, books for teens, books for adults. And we also want to make sure we're including the disability author community as well. So
Yes.
individuals who have disabilities who have written books, and we're going to support them. And we will hopefully have some huge lists of books for you to continue to come back and find your next read. And we're going to be supporting Disability Book Week at the end of April, the last week in April.
Okay.
So you can look forward to that. And hopefully, as we continue to get more and more communities on board, having libraries and schools set up displays of disability inclusive books, specifically that week, but really any time of the year. So
Yes.
really, it would be great to just see all these books out into the world. people are grabbing them when they're at their library, when they're at their school. We just need more of them out there in general.
In episodes 33 through 36, you'll be hearing about one of the most talked about occupations in the education field, literacy. Obviously, understanding the written word affects all other subjects as time goes on. You've likely heard terms like learning to read progresses to reading to learn. But we don't always think about how literacy affects math. Years ago, when we were going through vision therapy because my son was unable to visually track the letters on a page, I knew I needed to accommodate him in other subjects like science and history. We read and talked aloud for almost everything. But math curriculums were also an issue. Reading the problems on worksheets and workbooks were difficult, but reading word problems was absolutely impossible. And this is one of the reasons that we switched to CTC Math. For every problem, a person can click on the audio and hear the problem read aloud. Bonus, my son loved the Australian accent. So if your child needs the skills of reading separated from math, this is a great program for you. So visit ctcmath.com to check it out. Okay. Lindsey, tell me a little bit about what you're looking for, like when you are setting up your own library and also when you're like choosing these books, because there are several books that are written and may have a person with a disability in it, but that wouldn't necessarily put them in Disability Book Week, or do you feel like it would?
Yes, we will have a panelist. Yes, they would be included. There will just be some criteria that we go through in terms of making sure it really, I hope we don't encounter too many that this would be the case, but any book should be included if there's a character with a disability, and then we'll have a whole separate section of just authors who have disabilities that they may or may not have a character in their book that has a disability, or that it's even outright stated. There are also books, some of the children's books I have don't have to necessarily state a disability, but if their character was based off of maybe themselves and they have a disability, as long as they represent that disability to a realistic degree, and that it's positive, yes, versus like, why would the villain in the book be the like the disability shouldn't be like a villainous, I don't know, act or something with it. Yeah, they're hitting people with their device. I'm scared to think of, I've heard from the previous director that I will be surprised what is out there as we continue to go through, but we will, like I said, have a panel of individuals that just read through every book to make sure that what we're recommending is positive, positive representation of neurodiversity.
And have you seen a difference with your daughter specifically when you're bringing in these books at home and she can see some of her own representation?
She does have moderate intellectual disability. She doesn't come right out and say, but she has been surrounded by this. And my 10-year-old too. It's interesting that this has been a part of their life. Like, as far as they know, their whole life, they've had all of these books around them, and they haven't known anything else. So I have to say though, just this past week, my daughter that is going to public school this year, she came home and said that there was an optional essay to write about fire safety. And it was just very broad, fire safety, write whatever you want to write about it. And it's very interesting just because of her life and her situation with her sister, and her whole essay that she wrote was about thinking about individuals with disabilities and how they would have to think about their fire safety plan different than other individuals.
Good for her.
So it was like just being in an environment that is disability inclusive, and she already thinks in a way that is inclusive. And to me, that is everything.
That is everything. That is absolutely everything. Oh, so good. So good. And when you are picking books for your own library, so you said that you have like tons and tons already at home. How do you choose? Homeschoolers are known for their beautiful libraries, maybe stereotypical or what, but we're known for what libraries. So how do you choose what's coming into your own house?
That's a great question. We utilize our library a lot. And I think a lot of homeschoolers do actually. So for us, what I have done is, because a lot of self-published authors struggle to get into libraries, although lots and lots of self-published authors, including my book, are putting the information that's needed for cataloging in libraries inside their book, which they do pay extra for. So it is great to go ahead and just a little pitch out there for people to go ahead and request self-published books that their libraries purchase as well, because a lot of authors are putting that extra money into their book to make sure, because they want to see them out in the world for more people to be able to get their hands on. We do a lot of purchasing of self-published books to support those authors and their messages that I know they've put in just as much hard work, and they've learned the entire publishing process themselves as well. And on social media and everything, you as an author can become like a little community for each other where you support each other, especially when I have this passion around this certain group of books and there are others like that. So we definitely purchase books that are self-published, and we really supplement a lot with the library. And then for me, we're military too.
Oh, gosh, yeah. So you can't have boatloads of books, right?
Only move so much weight. And of course, books are like the heaviest thing. So I keep our collection of in-person books smaller for my books. Like I'm doing more library books for myself or reading. I have not done audiobooks yet. I am so behind the times because I don't do audiobooks.
Seriously,
I walk around my house with a paper book.
Good for you.
As I'm running into things. Yeah. I don't know. It's almost like my last little
I'm holding on tight.
This is what I want to do. But anyways, but I need to do more audio.
My daughter is actually that way. She holds them and like she loves the smell. It's a whole sensory thing for her. And I am not going to take that away. But I drive so much. I'm in the car all the time, taking my kids to sports and everywhere. I'm audiobooks galore.
Sure.
Roll through them.
Yes. We have to listen to my daughter's playlist when we're
yes.
Because she is all about music. She likes her books, but she is all about music.
Good for her.
So
good for her.
So yeah.
Find what you love. Oh, that's so great. So great. So if there is one recommendation that I'm putting you on the spot here, that you can give for parents, specifically parents of kids with disabilities, because so many people who are listening to this podcast either have kids with disabilities or are disabled themselves, and most are homeschooling. What is one thing that you would say about finding the right books to help our kids? Think big.
I guess honestly, this is why I said I would be the director of Disability Book Week.
Yeah.
I want a place where people can go, and I've got a lot of work to do, and because we want a go-to place for people to find these types of books, because they're not all going to be at your library. They are. I want them to be, and I think as we can continue to be purchasing these books or showing up at our library and saying, hey, can we get any of these books? My children would really relate to some of these. I think it's going to take all of us, and it's going to take time. But I would say hang on to the Disability Book Week website. I will be updating that. We will be continuing to pour more into that, so everybody does have a place to go and find those books.
So great. Thank you so much, Lindsey, for being here. Thank you for writing your book, and what a journey you've been on. It's so amazing to see where you started. I'm going to work with hands, and you're like, just kidding. I'm now going to write books and really put them out into the world about disabilities and experiences. And that's so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a fun journey. It really is.
Yeah. So great. And one more time, what are the different spots that people can find you? So
disabilitybookweek.org. My website, which does have some free resources on it, is lindsey-larson.com. So spelled with E's. And I'm on Instagram as OT Homeschool Mom. So you can find me there. I'm on Facebook as Lindsey Larson Author. You can find me there.
And we will make sure that all of these are linked in the show notes below, so you guys can make your curated, beautiful book lists as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.